Hi and good morning, everybody. Welcome to the SUSE QE Tools workshop of uh, the September in 2021. Now again, as in the first on the first Friday of every month, I will share the browser view and we will go over the roadmap. So this is the QA wiki on progressopenSUSE.org, showing our team description. And the first thing that we start with is the features and bugs and infrastructure tickets that we worked on within the last period. In the last month, thanks to Tina and to Chris, you were showing mostly, but I think you were mostly presenting the resolved tasks. So put a lot of focus on that. Thank you for that. So this is why I can reduce the period to just the last month. As we can see in the total numbers, we are slightly below our average. Our average is roughly, you can say, 2 tickets per day that we resolve. So what we can see here is the impact of vacation period. Nevertheless, we are nearly there. But one other point that we see is that the ratio is quite skewed towards bugs as well as tickets which are maybe not that specific to OpenQA itself, which can explain why we have less feature requests. Let me take a look myself. What's in organizational? Yeah, okay. So this describes it pretty well. A lot of time had been spent on stabilizing existing tests, and with tests we mean like the unit tests and the integration tests of in the OpenQA project. So we noticed a lot of problems. Some of these tickets had already been presented last month. We already realized in our internal retrospective that this was taking a lot of time, but in the end, we agreed that it was a worthwhile investment, and now we are in a more stable situation, which helps us also when we see issues in production, because we know from this strong unit test and integration test coverage what we can rely upon. Also, we are using now more GitLab CI pipelines for multiple internal things. And this is also why we needed to, let's say, have some internal learning going on until we could make sure that everybody in the team now understands how we can use that in multiple different GitLab projects which are linked to bigger upstream projects. Now this block of feature requests, which is specific for OpenQA. I will also mention some other feature requests in other related projects, but this is specific to OpenQA. So there had been work that, let workers declare themselves as broken if asset downloads are piling up, meaning that if we do have some kind of higher load in the system and many tests are scheduled and we are in an environment where we have a scaled up OpenQA instance that is getting bigger and bigger, more tests scheduled, more tests running, more tests queuing up, meaning more I/O load on the central parts of the infrastructure. And this is where we also want to mark these workers accordingly so that they can be better handled. It is this broken often doesn't really show up to the users, but is really, let's say, for better internal handling that we see if certain components are under stress. There was one detail regarding the handling of needles when KSDA is a Git repository, a feature which is more and more used, and I'm glad that this is the case. And there's still some corner cases around when you have a needles repository which should come from the same or from another repository, and you want to check it out from the non-Git repo or the Git repo or another Git repo, and how to specify that. So we worked on one point here. Yeah, and then a fixed flaky coverage. I mainly mentioned that in before. Speed up an internal test, and then also you can say a minor detail about how URLs are rendered. You know, if you put any bug link or any URL in an OpenKA comment or a description, this is markdown text, and the URL will be automatically converted into a proper URL. And now also covering the hash sign, which should be parsed as part of the URL and not outside. Okay, so for bugs, so there had been, again, this is like unstable tests, this one and this one. There had been, and there actually still are, some problems regarding hook scripts. So there's a possibility to run custom hook scripts. We use that for a longer time now. Like you might know the OpenKA label known issues and OpenKA investigate scripts, which get triggered whenever job's finished. And yeah, we observe some errors which might be specific to the job. So it might be specific to some circumstances if certain assets exist, or how the regex in tickets is specified and such. What else? There was a problem. So there is one big timeout which is called max job time in OpenKA, which is by default 2 hours. If any job in OpenKA runs longer than 2 hours, it aborts by default, and everybody can tweak that timeout. Some months ago, we introduced a max setup time, which is the phase before the job actually starts. You know, the period from the job is created, and we might need to sync assets to the worker, download certain assets. And by default, the timeout for that is 1 hour, which we already consider long, you know, to just download something within the internal network. But still, there were some jobs that run into that. And the problem was that there was actually no output in between, so some process hang in the middle. And now this ticket might be interested to users of multi-machine tests, in particular within the OSD infrastructure within OpenKA SUSE. So there were errors showing up in the Open vSwitch config, showing a certain IP and an error message that the grid tunnel could not be added. Okay. There were certain grid tunnel could not be added, and well, we found out a problem in the salt pillar documents that we have there, mainly thanks to Dominic Heidler here. And that might prevent some spurious magic multi-machine test problems where nobody could really pinpoint what the problem was. Yep, so much about this. And now for the blank component, actually what I would like to do is change the grouping. So I will change to group by project, because now we have covered all the OpenQA specific tickets. So we basically looked at this block of 23 tickets here. All these tickets have a category. And now for the other categories, there is OpenQA infrastructure and QA, and that's where we invested a lot of time. So there's certain plans within SUSE IT to change something about where the servers are located. So we needed to prepare for that, build some system details. As expected, constant problems with the existing machines, which we try to automatically recover, and also now the ticket system changed around that, so we need to adopt for that. We do have 2 machines in the queue that in the upcoming weeks we should be able to use For now, we will use them, of course, additionally, not as a full replacement. So let's see how much capacity they will offer. What else? The can't call method write on an undefined value. This was could lead to a very high number of incompletes, where then our infrastructure struggled to cope with that. So this was an interesting error which we never saw before in internal tests and only showed up in production tests, and unfortunately only at the end of tests. So it would, take all the resources, but then still produce not useful results in the jobs. And this is also then related that we had quite some limitations in the disk I/O systems. Yeah, and you can see some tickets which are also related to that. For example, that the web UI was slow and the Apache response time alert got triggered, as well as this one, the job queue hitting a new record of 14,000 jobs. Yay! So 14,000 OpenQA jobs were scheduled and were like in the scheduled queue. So this was a new record. In before we had something around a limit of 6,000. So this is a new, let's say, a negative record somehow, because it was mainly problematic, useless jobs that were scheduled here and that couldn't really provide a good benefit. And actually also this one, you can say the availability was above 100%. Yeah, we are that good. No, we actually did kind of miscalculate. So now the availability is back to the original number, somewhere in the range of 99.8%. What else? Yeah, alert and such. Okay, so much about the infrastructure, and now to the QA project. Now the QA project is like the parent project of OpenQA project, and this is where we then keep all the tasks which are not necessarily specifically OpenQA itself, but might be related, or also other things that we care about. And the foremost area where the most effort went in was the SUSE QAM maintenance bot and all the scheduling around that. So there were certain problems regarding public cloud tests, how these tests were scheduled, and of course with scheduling you always need to take over some settings. And then there was an extension to the QEM dashboard prototype, where which also has an API, so that was extended to cover some certain cases. Then related to that, there was also the so-called on-submission tests, where the shorthand MR is used, MR for maintenance request. So these are tests that are scheduled before we are even talking about release requests, and all of that should be in one separate job group, so that the reviewer responsibility area is more clear. So that was then finally finished. We also had one task that says increase bus factor for bot and G. Previously, we had a similar ticket, increase bus factor for QA maintenance OpenQA bot, which we solved mainly thanks to Jan Bayer, that we are scheduling all the runs not on cron jobs on some machines, but in GitLab CI pipelines, where everybody can then see the log files and see when something was triggered, and also see when there are problems. And now we have the same for bot and G, which is yet another prototype to schedule some tests, which currently schedules the incident tests and the full tests, and the L3 support case tests, as well as the on-submission tests. They are still done by QA maintenance OpenQA bot. Okay, so, and then this one is the open QA review reports. They were also on cron jobs, and this was actually where we did that approach the first time, where we also run in GitLab CI jobs all the reports, and now all of them are showing up on a non-personal common space. Okay, so
Olli, I
yeah,
have a
go on.
question. To the ticket before about all these bots. Is there a documentation anywhere what kind of bots we have and what they're doing? I mean, on the high level, just descriptions or so.
Yes.
But over.
So
Okay.
from the QE tools team description, there is team responsibilities, and this one mentions 5 points. For example, we develop OpenQA, we maintain OSD as well as we maintain O3, and it also says this point, develop and maintain internal maintenance QA tools, which mentions the examples here, but it also links to an internal page, and that internal page has more details and mentions these bots with descriptions and further links into the according development projects like the GitLab projects.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. So any other questions or additions to the resolved tasks that we had done in the past period? Let me see, are there any raised hands? Oh, not right now. We're good. Nothing chat. All right. So the next part which I would like to go into is then the backlog, and I will again start with the top level view, where on the top level view we have the situation is changed here since the past, is unchanged here since the past meetings. So we have for sagas here, which define our work on the time base of years and months. This is why we don't expect that much change. But I would like to remind which guides us as on the generic top level roadmap. So the first one, this is the let me turn around the sorting so that we have the oldest still open one first. So the detection of known failures for stable tests, easy results review, and easy tracking of known issues. This is more and more, this is like where we have tiny issues left, where we still see where we can improve something. I think this saga we can really soon conclude, because the main part is covered. We can much better distinguish which issue is something that a test reviewer needs to look into, which should be mostly failed tests, and which is something that an admin of the OpenQA instance needs to look into. This is like incomplete tests. And for both, there are means to detect certain issues, like with a regex, which we can put into the OpenQA config file or into progress ticket subject lines with regex, as well as with the old feature of label carryover and all these things. And then also based on that, it can be decided if certain tests should be automatically be re-triggered. And for the rest, the interesting issues of new issues that had not been seen in before, we also try to provide as much information as possible. Think about the investigation tab and job details page of OpenQA, as well as the OpenQA investigate jobs based on hook scripts which get triggered, which can provide additional detail to say a retry of the job works, so this is likely a sporadic issue, or the last good build reproduces the problem, but if we revert to the last good tests, the tests pass, meaning that it's very likely a test regression. So as I said, there are still some minor issues where we think we can improve. This is as well as on the side of detecting certain issues as well as better handling them. Just one task which comes to mind for this one here would be that these OpenQA investigate comments, they are plain comments in OpenQA, providing URLs to other OpenQA jobs on the same instance. And then the one feature that we work on is to provide the status of the jobs behind these URLs directly on the comment, so that if you would find a failed job, it has a comment from OpenQA Investigate, and that comment will tell you immediately if the investigation jobs have already completed, what was the result, like a red or a green bubble on the comments page, similar as you would see them in the next and previous list or the test overview page or the /test route. Any comments or notes on that, Saga? Right. Now the next one is the scaling up saga. Efficient handling of large storage to be able to run current tests efficiently but keep big archives of old results. I would say this is likely the most hidden saga. To most users, you wouldn't care about that, but we definitely need it, and you would care about that if we would not work on that, because the OpenQA SUSE instance is growing a lot, as well as other instances. You can imagine as soon as you see that OpenQA tests are doing their job, you extend the test coverage, you add more tests, you collect results over a longer time, and you want to keep some results for longer, as well as you add more products and more variants, more flavors, more versions, more complicated structures of image creation jobs and the ones relying on loading the images and such. And all this goes into this saga. So we have certain amount of storage, think like 10 terabytes and plus of storage that must be sufficiently fast to be able to be retrieved over a web UI, which is accessed of multiple tens or hundreds of users. But still we want to, so both we want to run the tests, but still keep an archive of old results. So what specific features go into that? There is already an archiving feature, and that is an upstream feature which we had there for months. We consider that well tested, but we also want to use it for OpenQA SUSE and to be able to scale better regarding different kind of storage. The fast but expensive limited storage, as well as the big but slow and cheaper storage. And to separate that, we can use the archiving feature, but for that we also want to have proper backup so that, when we do that switch over, we don't lose important results from milestone builds or previous released products that we rely upon. And also these bugs which I mentioned before, that about max setup time, where we run into limitations that a download takes too long or tests run into timeout even in the setup phase already. This all goes into this saga. And then there's the scaling out saga. This is when you say it's not about a single instance, but multiple instances. And this is both production instances which you want to spread over multiple hosts. Same for the workers as well as for the web UI. And this is where we, mention ideas like running OpenQA in Kubernetes, in containers, streamline the containers, but then also on the low end, streamline the setup of OpenQA so that OpenQA is even easier to set up. And admittedly, there's a lot of things where we can make OpenQA easier for the first-time users, even with all the different use cases that people have. And the fourth saga, which is the most recent one, this is basically this year, is that we want to better support the SUSE maintenance QA workflows, where of course our big focus is on big automation, and the automation in these pipelines should cover the testing, approval, and release of maintenance updates. So that this is where this comes into play. This is also where we link work on this internal triggering and approval and release bots too. So when we talk about QA maintenance OpenQA bot or bot-ng, it's related to this saga. So would you any questions or notes on that level? Not yet? Okay. Then I will go into the current complete backlog. The current complete backlog includes the 4 sagas, but it has the more detailed view. So we have 79 tickets. Just yesterday we did a big estimation round within the team, and we managed to estimate all new tickets into being workable for us, so that we know we have a really good estimate on what the effort is, and we know better of how could we actually start implementing that. Since then 2 new came up, so this was, well, this is actually an older limited bug regarding the Python support in the OpenQA test API. Python does work for writing tests, and we did have a lot of good presenting materials around that, but there can still be corner cases where we can improve or something might be confusing. And another issue which I found is that, this is also related to the scale up. A lot of data, meaning that a lot of assets need to be cleaned up on a day-by-day basis. Otherwise, we fill up terabytes of data very quickly within minutes or hours. So this is one issue which I saw there. Now, what we have in the queue, so these are the workable tickets, is that can we see? Let me see. To show the priority, making it a bit more concise. Yeah, so there's one bug that when tests are running, in certain cases, test module results, like the individual step results, this individual thumbnail boxes, they fail to be uploaded, but actually the test still records as passed as an overall result. So that's an interesting case. It was just mentioned in chat recently by more than one person, the error message, unable to upgrade WS to command server when setting up your own personal instance. So I thought this would be a really good point for improvement if 2 persons now hit that same problem. It's actually a really old issue, so people have seen that problem from time to time when they install their own setup. So we already did some improvement, but we would like to further mention that better in the error message, what to do, or handle it in documentation. What else? Yeah, so this is also related to scaling up, that right now mainly what we do is we do an asset cleanup based on time-based triggers. So at certain times on the day, we trigger cleanup of all the unused results, assets, and such. But I think that both for bigger production instances as well as single user instances, it can be very helpful to use event-based, like something like when something big is going on in OpenGL, then this is a good point in time where we take a look into, should we now clean up something? And then this feature I would like to mention. So some people of you might know the epic to find a better single place to surface failed results, mainly for the SUSE QE squads. To there's this to-do only report coming from OpenGL Review, and that one needs some polishing because right now the section titles are part of list entries when they should be section headers on top of the list instead. So I'm skipping some when I think they're, let's say, less interesting to users on the outside, but more like internal improvements and error fixes, which we need to. What we would like to have is provide better measures of a fail rate of tests, especially for multi-machine tests. So this should somehow show up in Grafana, which we use for OpenQA SUSE, so that we within the tools team as the admins could better see not only incomplete tests, but really failed tests that somehow seem to increase in rate over time, which might also point to certain issues in the infrastructure or even bugs in the code that we have under our control. And I hope that maybe this is not only showing up in Grafana, but this might also be a feature in OpenQA itself, which we can use there. Then there is the this feature identify likely sporadic OpenQA tests with the help of OpenQA Investigate, which is one of these hook scripts, which automatically gets triggered when we have new failed results that need reviewing. And we would like these scripts to give a better pointer to say, hey, this failed, this passed, likely this might be a sporadic issue. Okay, for example, if a test suddenly fails, in before it was fine, but when we retry, then it's passed again. This might tell you very likely that this is a sporadic issue, and then how to handle that accordingly. This is the feature which I just mentioned is linked to this epic. So we want to use the feedback from OpenQA Investigate to automatically inform on GitHub pull requests, open tickets, and weed out automatically failed tests. So the sporadic tests are just one part of it, and then the epic consists of more ideas. We will do that one feature first, and then see how it goes, and how we can extend that, for example, to clearly identify maybe it's a test regression. And if it's very likely a test regression, then we could put that information on the GitHub pull request which introduced the test regression. Or if we say it's very likely a sporadic issue, then there's no point in commenting on pull requests which might not have introduced the problem when it was there before, but we can open tickets. Or if we say this is very likely a product regression, then we could also report a ticket about that in another issue tracker, or at least mark it as such. Right, what else? So that one here, which is we have the test details page on OpenQA, and originally OpenQA only had this notion of screenshots. Then came text results from script runs and such, and then came this serial terminal based results which are text only. And there are by now already tests which are designed for more like being visual based or being text based. And in both cases, the requirements how to display that differ a lot. this is why now we have, let's say, some kind of compromise for a mixed test where you have visual results as well as serial terminal based results, and it can feel a bit inconsistent because the thumbnails show up one way and the text results pop up in a different way, where just the visual representation and the animations, they are a bit different. They might be tailored for each individual use case, but for a common mixed case, it does feel a bit inconsistent. So we would like to improve that, because this is, if you work with a web UI a lot, then this becomes really annoying, and I agree to that. All right, and the final ticket which I would like to mention is that I think I have mentioned that in before because it was already in the backlog. Still, I would like to remind about that, is that currently on the /tests page, we already distinguish the different kind of comments that we have on jobs. So we can see if it's a plain comment or a label or a bug or multiple of these with the according cover preview of what that is. And we already provide means to filter the list of complete tests to show only failed, incomplete, and such. And now we would like to combine these two into the next step, is to say, same as on the test overview page, same as on the OpenQA review to-do only page, we would like to have the means to show all the unreviewed failures on that /tests page. So this is also linked to the SUSE QA maintenance processes, where you don't have a single job group to review, but you have tests that are right now spread out in multiple job groups. And the /tests page could be used to say, I don't want to use the sorting of job groups, but I would like to take a look from a different perspective, like, just the last failed X jobs that need reviewing, and then from there I can sort and filter out further. Okay. Okay, so sorry, I had a short network outage. Yes, can you still hear me?
Yep.
I'm back. Okay, thank you. Now with this, this is how I wanted to present the current plan. And now I would like to open the floor for more discussion. So please bring up your questions, your notes, your wishes for including certain tasks, or maybe excluding certain tasks, or just asking about some task like, is that covered? Should we do that or such? Who wants to go?
Can I'm not prepared I haven't prepared this, just, I was thinking about that recently. Can you hear me?
Yep, go on.
Yep, sound is fine.
I was thinking that how convenient will be when I create a pull request, I edit the template on GitHub, right? And I add some verifications runs, right? Some links to the verifications run.
Yep.
When you push again some update the pull request, if it will be possible to re-trigger automatically this
right
verifications runs.
Yeah, to have updated ones for the new changes.
Yeah, but I think it's very tricky, right?
I think it's a really good idea, and I already had that prototype in a previous Hack Week project. So if you're interested, I can. I'm not sure if I can find that right now. Or actually, I can. So here, I provided a prototype for doing that based on GitHub Actions. So basically, based on GitHub Actions, whenever I push changes into a branch, that would automatically trigger OpenK tests.
But which test? What kind of test?
Right, in that case, it was like a single hard-coded test, which is part of the GitHub Actions. Yeah. So in the you can take a look in the according branch, and you should see
Yeah, sure.
it mentioned. And the idea I had is to say, well, we can still start with one, which is probably a good idea. I mean, one is better than nothing, and it could be something like, let's say, a default test case if we can identify something as such. So here you see this one curl line to trigger jobs, and what I did there is trigger a test which is defined with jobs post to just by the parameters which I specify here as part of the pull request, which completely defines the OpenK test, including the schedule. So this is what I did here. And I think what could be done as an alternative is to say have some kind of structured document, like another YAML file, which defines the test set to be used as verification runs. Or maybe if you don't want to include that into the commit itself, it could be in the commit message. And if you search on the web for how to read out the git commit message, then I'm pretty sure that it could be easily passed from there. So the original idea which I had is that with some kind of mention in the commit message, or mention in the maybe just the pull sorry, had a short outage again. Maybe just a sorry about that. It's a bit problematic today.
I'm gonna create a ticket for that.
Actually, it's a nice idea, but you don't have to. Okay.
No, I was talking about the network issues.
It's fine. I'm just at a different location today, so next time it will be better again. So yeah, we had some plans around that. I wanted to follow up with that. It's actually in its own saga. Unfortunately, we had to slow down our progress on that because we needed to focus more on the QA maintenance processes. Okay, so the various requests which came up on there, we needed to prioritize. So this is the main saga regarding using more awesome GitHub Actions and something. That one unfortunately is slowed down in favor of the QA maintenance process, which we currently focus on, which of course also bring helpful OpenK features along.
Can I ask you something? This is only. Oh, never mind. Okay, yeah, we can talk about that outside of this. I have another kind of request. Is it possible to run? Let's say you want to run a job, but you don't want to the visual headless test. Run a thing and have just the also inst results, and
right,
that it passes. No,
where you don't care about the visual result.
yes,
yeah,
it's possible, right?
It's possible. So there again, this one prototype I showed, which is scheduling tests in the production run. Okay, I can actually show you another example for that, which is in the OS audience distri example. Okay, the example distribution. that example distribution does have a GitHub action with results. Sorry, I can't click on the badge. I can go into actions. That doesn't show up here. So here, the example distribution. And that one shows, let me see, where can I... So this is an actual ISO2 video run, a complete one, which is, you can say, headless. Yeah. So we do run ISO2 video there. So you can consider that a complete OpenQA test run within GitHub Actions.
Okay.
It's one. Yeah, so here what we do is we use the container version of ISO2 video, and we run ISO2 video with the current test distribution as a base directory, and then afterwards we check the results. So what we do is we check all JSON test module results, and we just check that everything is okay, and otherwise fail the GitHub Actions based on that. Okay, so anyone else with some questions or wishes? Don't be shy, take your time. You can also ask in chat. Then there's so while I present the currently in progress one, please think about any more wishes or suggestions or questions. There we have on the O3 instance, there's one host which is called Rebel, and that host is the one that ran S390 tests for Tumbleweed and Leap. And this host had well, some hardware problems. Maybe it's just file system. So this is the main push ticket covering the outage of that host. And while we handle the outage of that host and want to have it recovered, we are also looking into a replacement setup. So my hope is that within the next days we would be able, O3 is able again to work on S390 OpenSUSE tests. And then there's one spike for a feature to filter test results based on a regex match within the module content. A use case could be show me all test results for modules which match certain search term, like where maintainer is my email address. We have a git commit message style checker in OpenQA, and we extend that slowly to other GitHub projects. And maybe we will also propose the same for common test distributions within the OS audience scope. So I hope that many of you would appreciate that. And we have some experiments running for testing our chat service notifications. I mean, we had RabbitMQ since years, and we had a working RSC bridge, which still works. And that one is to test out a bit more modern approaches as well, including matrix chat. And then finally, this feature is about automatic replacement of OpenQA job URLs with the preview. So here we would see the job details as a preview behind the URL, which I mentioned in before, linked to the OpenK Investigate job hook. Okay, so there was one more question by Yanis. Go on.
Hey, sorry, I'm me again. But do you consider a breach, a security breach, that when you search on the UI, you can find the no secret password?
There are ways to hide certain variables. So do you want
Yes,
to
but
see the
on
variables,
the
or do you want to
UI,
not
no,
see?
no. When you search, you can find the password even on O3 or
Yes.
OSD.
Yeah.
Is that okay, or it shouldn't be visible?
It
should exclude it from the search.
Yeah, I think the problem is that the variable is used in a not secret variable type. Okay, so I think what's happening there is that we do have the feature to hide certain credentials, but for the certain case that you're talking about, I think what is used there is the not secure variable type. So what you're talking about is the password, which is literally not secret, which I think is also mentioned at multiple places in the test distribution. So about that specific one, I'm not worried.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So yeah, no more chance to ask question. Is everybody completely happy with how we plan our work in the tools team? Yeah. Now I'm worried. Ah, thank you, Phoenix. Anybody likes to give this thumbs down?
Now's your chance.
Yeah. Use it. Okay, fine. Thank you all for attending so far. So much about this workshop. For the next week's workshop, originally I thought we would talk about the scripting, but we have moved that schedule. So actually the next week's workshop slot is free and we are open for topic proposals there. Is there anybody that's volunteering now to say, yeah, this perfect opportunity, I would like to, talk about certain things, hear about certain things? Okay, maybe not yet. You're welcome to edit the wiki page directly, propose something. So this is really low effort organization. Until then, thank you and goodbye.